Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to Terratech with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome back to the glorious tech graveyard. Before we get into the main part of today's episode, which is most likely already spoiled by the video's title, I would just like to go over something very briefly which did cause a lot of confusion in the comment section of the previous video, and I have a weird feeling that this is something which has been changed in the patch notes over the course of the game's development, or it's just a common misconception, but either way, I ended up replying to many comments talking about it. So, rather than keep on replying, I'm going to quickly showcase something. So, when it comes to flyers, you cannot use the regular rotor fans, or the propellers, or the thrusters in order to turn yourself when you're in the air. Although it doesn't sound particularly intelligent, it is just the way the game currently works. At the moment, if you press A and D whilst you're on the ground, as you can see, the rotor does indeed help you turn. However, once you go into flight mode, which is a certain amount of distance off the ground, by just pressing shift, you will see this propeller will then start turning me around over and over again, and I have absolutely no control of it. Even if I let go of shift, and now start pressing A and D, the rotor will not spin, it becomes inactive, only bound to the master key. And right now, there is no way to fix that. And did I just lose a wheel? I definitely lost something because of how hasty I'm being. Yep, I did indeed lose a wheel. So I can't use rotors to help me turn, no matter how much I would love to. I've also tried putting them in several different orientations all over the craft. I've tried putting them together, which several people did suggest, by taking off the back of the helicopter and putting them back to back, and the same applies there. Since so many people were saying about it, I just thought it best to cover it quickly now so we can carry on. And also, maybe it is because of a patch note, because the game is constantly changing. Either way, into the main part of the video. And so we move on to the main part of the video. Today, we are building a hovercraft, or at least, we are seeing if a hovercraft is indeed viable at this part of the game. The reason that I'm doing this today rather than building a plane is because honestly, I've got a little bit sick of building flyers, at least for a short period of time, and would like to take a bit of a break, and we've now unlocked a whole host of new things which will make building a hover hopefully somewhat viable. We have the large hover plate from the GSO, a smaller version of the hover plate also from the GSO, and we have the horn steering wheel, which is actually really powerful. And of course, by steering wheel I mean steering hover. So it's a little bit weird. I believe it's stronger than the 5-way from the Venture Corporation, but it can only go in two directions. I've currently placed a couple on the helicopter, and it does seem to be making it a little bit better, even if it is currently steering itself into my machinery. Okay, let's ignore the fact the helicopter's doing what the helicopter's doing, and in addition to all this, we do have access in Venture, the gyroscope, the stabilizer, and the 2-slot hover plate as well. So hopefully with all of these things, in addition to the 5-way steering hover, we should be able to make a somewhat viable hovercraft, which maybe, just maybe, can use the megaton cannon, which would be really cool. So, I have purposefully kept myself away from the hover stuff so far, so I'm going to go ahead, go into that tiny little cab over there, and we're going to see just what the hovers can do. The first hover in question will be the smallest, the GSO small variant. Oh, that's adorable. Okay, it bounces. Okay, then let's... I did kind of want to check how powerful this thing is, so let's go ahead and put ourselves the gyroscope on there. No, not on the front, on the top. There we go, we've made a successful hovercraft. Oh wow, that gyroscope is actually more powerful than I expected. This is way faster than expected. There we go, I've made a completely successful hovercraft. The episode is over, the enemies are quaking in fear from our new craft. Oh god, this is so difficult to control. On the upside though, kind of fun. So this will be the basic... The funny thing is, this is the basic premise of building our hovercraft. Have an ability to turn, have an ability to stay stable, and stay off the ground. And we have eventually stopped bouncing as well, which is really good, because if it kept bouncing as much as it did at the start, that would be horrendous. We still bounce a bit when we go onto new terrain, but I'm hoping that larger techs with several of these hover plates may be a bit more stable, as they all seem to be weaker the further they get off the ground. So the bigger they are, of course, more of them going off the ground at the same time, and not all of them at the same time, it should be more stable. Okay, let's get back to where we were just a second ago, that small area I'd cleared out, and let's add some more blocks. Oh dear God, please stop. Here we are in the nice cleared out area next to the black hole, and we are using the 2x2 hover from GSO. Seems about the same, just bigger, so I assume it's probably stronger and can take more weight, but right now it seems about the same. Okay. So it's all going to act in a very, very similar way. I think I'm going to probably stick with GSO blocks, or maybe move over to Venture blocks. Since the Venture blocks are the lightest, we could probably make a very, very fast craft if we use things like the Hawkeye rotor fan, perhaps some kind of thrust system. We could make a really quick, really aggressive craft, and then stick a load of megaton cannons on, which would also be very cool. Because let's face it, big cannons, kinda cool. So, a very, very simple shape to begin with. We have gyroscopes in the middle, which I don't know how useful they're going to be, and we have one of the Hawkeye rotor blades at the back to control our turning. And one thing I do want to say is that right now, this thing will go really quickly just when it's turning, so I can only imagine if we add enough propulsion, this thing is going to cover a lot of ground very, very quickly. The only problem is, it's bizarre having something which has almost no friction. This thing does not slow down for a very, very long time, and it's going to take a lot of getting used to. Maybe one of these spoilers may help, actually. Force ourselves down, add a bit of downwards thrust. We'll see. That's a measure I don't want to take, but if we do have to take it, then so be it. Now, we do have all of these brackets to mess around with, which I'm really keen to do so. So right now, I'm going to armour up the centre a little bit so that we can see what we're doing, and then we shall proceed from there. Also, hopefully, in the next clip, it'll actually be daytime. Now, one problem I didn't think about until just now is that if we do not have equal turning on the front and the back, it means we're always going to swing out far too far, and so turning when we're moving quite slowly will be really difficult. So I actually don't think the Hawkeye rotor is going to be that good. I may still use it as our main propulsion going forwards, but definitely not for turning. I think that is where the steering hovers are definitely going to be more useful. So let's just test those out. Let's put them in here, just very, very quickly. Just put these two back here. This isn't their permanent location, just for a bit of testing. I said a bit of testing. There we go. Now it'll bounce for a while, as it always does. Okay, yeah, that's so much better. Now, because the thrust is equal on both front and back, it means we actually have some control. Also, we can technically control this thing right now, moving forwards. And even that is actually not that slow, so you can only imagine when we have true propulsion, this thing's going to be awesome. At least in terms of speed. Very, very early test with the hovercraft, just testing out the speed with a very, very basic setup, and yep, that's pretty much what I would expect. Turning is decent even with this very limited setup. Getting over terrain is a little bit difficult, actually. Taking damage here and there, which is a bit concerning, considering how strong these are. But the front hover doesn't, because it's higher up. Maybe I should just use the Venture hovers instead. They seem to be less liable to crash into things constantly. After a fair bit of testing, it just seems like if you're going over very rough terrain, you just need to go slowly. It doesn't really matter which of the different hover systems you're using, because whichever is the lowest is the lowest. So what I'm going to do is reattach our stronger hovers, because even with this very light vehicle, these hovers are actually struggling. While the bouncing makes everyone seasick, I've just found out something interesting. It turns out the 0G plate from the Venture Corporation, I really should have read better. It isn't actually a hovercraft item, it's in fact unlimited propulsion in a given direction. But you can't turn it off, so that's why it was a little bit better at dealing with the rough terrain, because it was always raising our craft, even when it wasn't close to the floor. The hovercraft items, however, only seem to be active when they're actually able to push against something. So there is something to bear in mind. We could use the 0G plates as a bit of a buffer in order to make sure we're always at least a bit off the ground. Not too sure just yet, but something to keep in mind. Also, this thing can move so quickly already, it's making me very, very happy. As you can see, probably my fastest craft so far, definitely need one of these speedometers, and it's only going to get quicker. Everything was going so normally, and then out of nowhere we have become a Hawkeye Venture hybrid. I don't know how this really happened, but it does seem to be working fairly decently, and it can go remarkably quickly already. Now sadly, with how we've built this hovercraft, using the megaton cannon is actually quite difficult because we can't symmetrically place it in the middle since it is indeed 2x2. So what we could do is build a larger version of the hovercraft in the future which does use the megaton cannon, or we attach two of them to this hovercraft. Not too certain just yet, but overall, I am pretty happy with this thing. Definitely works well with missiles, and just getting from place to place, it's probably my fastest vehicle at the moment. And of course, missiles are always fantastic. Did that kill the enemy? No, of course it didn't. It's weird swapping between cruise missiles and these much smaller variants, but these are much more reliable. Oh, lots and lots of trash. Going back to the graveyard, which is now actually starting to cause lag, so either I move from the graveyard, or I start cleaning up. That'll be a sad day. That'll be a very sad day indeed. Added a few more hovers to the bottom in addition to the Venture variant, and now we can go over tough terrain pretty well as long as we don't go too quickly. As you can see, this is probably the worst we're going to see, and it's absolutely fine. It really seems like hovercraft aren't really built for that, but are built more for this type of area like the salt flat. Also, can I just say, that was a very, very cool moment indeed. A quick slide turn, then we make another run by, and... is he dead? Not quite. The one problem I am having is turning whilst moving at any speed is quite difficult, so what would fix that is adding these rotors on the outside rather than on the inside, because then they would actually help us with turning when we're moving. But for now, I'm actually pretty happy with how this is, just a few minor changes, and I'm going to say our first hovercraft is essentially done. That is so much better. Okay, I think I've got to the point where I'm actually happy to take this thing out on a bit of an adventure, because I don't think it's constantly going to hit everything. It's still not going to handle rough terrain perfectly, but certainly nowhere near as bad as it was a moment ago. And I finally added myself a speedometer, which is pretty cool as well. Yeah, that's doing fantastically. That's the first time being hit in about 2 minutes. Not really wanting to fight these guys, though, honestly. That was a pretty nasty volley, and apparently that's done a lot of damage to the enemy. So much fire all around it, and the enemy is defeated after just 2 volleys of our missiles, so well done to the hovercraft. It certainly feels like a hovercraft as well, so light to the touch. And 125 is the max speed with thrusters on, so not that impressive, to be honest. My old flyers seem to do even better than this, but It's still pretty good. I think the main thing I really want to change is adding these propellers, the main propulsion, to the outside, further away from the centre of mass, and having 2 lots of them to help with turning, because right now, it's just a bit too floaty, and also floaty is the term I was looking for a moment ago. But still, it works, and I'm happy, and for the first test run, it's all good. Hello there, enemy. Look, missile volleys! Now, I know this one's pretty weak, but I can't see which one of the Geo enemies is behind it. Oh, is that the one with loads of mortars? I think it probably is. Yes, indeed it is. Thankfully, very short range. Missiles, on the other hand, not. Hovercraft is definitely easy enough to handle in a fight. Either way, I'll let these lovelies fight each other, and I'm going to get going, making some more adjustments to the hovercraft. More stable, more weapons, sadly a little bit slower, but other than that, I think we're at a good point to call this first hovercraft done. And that was awesome as well. Okay, very, very happy at least with the weaponry. Oh, wow. Are they megaton cannons? You know, I feel like they are. Or maybe not, they don't normally die that easily. No, they definitely weren't. Okay, reading a bit too much into that. Fear the wrath of missiles and 2 tiny little rifles. Especially the rifles. The rifles are the scary things. What's our normal speed now? Have we increased in speed? I've added weight. That's all I've done is add weight. How have we increased in speed? Not by much, but we have. Okay, it was 125 before with thrusters. No, maybe I was just having a weird fast moment there. I have no idea. Either way, though, I'm really happy with this. This was just a quick extra video. I originally wasn't going to really record this, but I thought it would be a bit of fun, so I am ending the episode here, as I do have way too much editing and way too many other videos to record, so thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, then of course, likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that Terratech is a series you would like to see continued in the future. In the future, I will definitely build a new hovercraft, but make it a bit bigger and make it use, a lot more exotic weaponry, rather than the standard. Although the standard weaponry here just fits so well, I think it was definitely the right call. A very, very nasty bit of burst damage, and very, very quick. So, very happy with it. Thank you again for watching, and thank you for all the support so far with Terratech. It has been amazing. Thank you, and goodbye.